Going on, everyone? It's OxxyOG. Today, we're going to be talking about my top 5 warrior wish list. I'm a Fury warrior main, but a lot of these will be applicable to all warriors, with some of them being tailored more to Fury because that is my pride and joy. With that being said, let me know if you agree with some of these or if you have any other ideas that you think might work out great. Let's get right into it with number 5. Coming in at number 5 is going to be Spell Reflect. So Spell Reflect is a defensive option that warriors have where you cast it and you get a 20% magic damage reduction. It also gives you the opportunity to reflect certain spells. My proposal for this would be to implement a castable or a Spell Reflect that is able to be applied to a party member individually. This could also go on tanks, for example. I believe in the past they did this through Intervene as like a PvP talent where you could intervene someone and they got Spell Reflect. Same type of deal. It could be applied through that or just a castable ability on an ally. It would give them the mitigation, and it would also reflect a spell if it was a spell being cast on them. And if you put it on your tank, you may get a very big reflect if like a boss on a high key is casting on a tank. I think this would bring some very unique utility for a warrior, would help with tank survivability, and it would bring more reasons to actually bring a warrior. Alternatively, I would love to see more raid centered or like even just full group centered Spell Reflect. So this could be called group Spell Reflect, for example, and instead of just being able to cast this on yourself or just one other ally, you could cast it on four allies in a certain radius of yourself. It would be similar to AMZ, but I wouldn't want it to be a castable on the ground. It would just be like in an area of effect. It would give, 15 or 20% magic damage reduction, similar to AMZ. And you could also have something similar to this where you have two options, and you could make it so that one is that your group Spell Reflect would cast on 4 targets around you for 20% magic damage reduction, and then you could make this one say that it would cast on 20 targets around you or 19 for raid group content or all targets, whatever, just the fact that everybody around you would get it, but maybe for 10% reduction, reduce the amount, but increase the amount of allies that can receive the benefit. I think this would really go a long way to secure a warrior a more concrete spot in a group and would be a great change. Okay, coming in at number 4 is going to be something we have to talk about, which is the target cap. So, as per Improved Whirlwind, we are currently capped on our general rotation at just 4 targets off of our main target, so 5 target cap, and there is no beyond 5 target reduced damage like just about every other spec has. Pretty simple change would just be to make it so that we do reduce damage beyond 5 targets. We see this with our Thunderblast and Mountain Thane doing damage to 8 targets and then reduce damage beyond them, and it ends up doing massive damage, which is great. I think this is a grievance that many people have, so this is kind of like the no-brainer, but definitely just opening up the field for the beyond 5 targets, you'll just do reduced damage, would just change the game for Warrior. All right, coming in at number 3, we're going to talk about Single-Minded Fury. So for those of you that don't know, Single-Minded Fury is a talent that you can opt into taking that allows you to dual wield single-handed weapons instead of dual-handed weapons with a buff to them. So it increases the damage done by 5%, and your auto attack damage with one-handed weapons is increased by 30%. There are some builds that go into Annihilator, or used to go into Annihilator build and Single-Minded Fury, and it was people liked it. It had a bleed build and everything. No longer a thing. People don't even think about Single-Minded Fury. I honestly believe that Single-Minded Fury should just be taken off of the talent tree and just made baseline. It just makes sense. So just take this one off, make it baseline, and let people enjoy it. I also think that Warrior as a whole could do great to feel a little bit more thematic. They did a good job with Thunderblast and adding in the lightning, but outside of that, I don't always feel the I guess, coolness of playing warrior. So when I was playing an elemental shaman just for fun as an alt, just shocking things left and right and seeing the earthquakes and all kinds of lightning going everywhere, it felt so cool. And then I went back to warrior, as I always do, and I'm just like stomping the ground for a little bit of lightning and maybe throwing a spinny sword, and that's about it. I mean, when you cast your main cooldown avatar, you just like grow in size a little bit. I would just love to see something a little more thematic. If you're gonna go Mountain Thane route, maybe like when you cast avatar, you like start jolting lightning. It could be anything, but just more theme to the class to make it feel a little bit more visually appealing was something that I didn't even realize I wanted until I played something else and was like, wow, I love Warriors gameplay, and that's what always brings me back. But I really wish we had more visual, just wow factor. Coming in at number 2, let's talk about Rallying Cry. So Rallying Cry has been through some ups and downs throughout its time. Times where it's been completely overpowered and very useful in all content, and then other times like now where it's kind of just like a little tickle in health of like, hey, here, you're like gonna live a little bit longer. In raid, it is pretty nice, considering it applies to everybody and can help people live. It ends up getting woven in as a group cooldown, but it's still not anything too insane. In Mythic Plus, it's, I don't want to say worthless, but borderline worthless. I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've kept my group alive with the 10% health that it does offer. But with that being said, it just feels like a button that you push and it doesn't make too much of a difference. So I would love to see it could stay about the same for raid. I like its raid application, but maybe in similar to what we spoke about earlier, where you have two different options within a node. Have it for like a raid group option where it applies to all targets around you for a lesser amount of health, like 10%, like current, or a node that's going to say, will apply to the 4 nearest targets to you for 20% increased health, or anything, some other kind of buff, a haste, like a small haste buff, anything, just to make it feel like we're bringing some actual utility. Just to go hand in hand with that, Warrior actually does have a lot of like built-in utility that is pretty cool. We actually have a knockback with Intimidating Shout using Menace. We have an AoE slow, but the thing is we're already hurting so much with damage that they're impossible to take with talents unless you just want to absolutely like gut your damage contributions to the group. So making our talent nodes a lot more accessible for utility would feel great for Warrior, because that is one of the big things we're missing. Now this season in particular, the War Within season 2, we're missing just about everything, especially Fury, but it would feel great to at least get some utility back so that players who really know their class can shine through the amount of utility that they bring. But when you can't even do that and you don't have damage, it just feels like we don't bring anything. So, and lastly, our number 1 spot, which is going to be where we have to talk about Battle Res. I played with the idea of Battle Res versus Lust for a Warrior, and Battle Res just makes the most sense, considering if you gave Lust to Warrior, the tank Warrior would most likely have to have it and would make them like a go-to tank all the time, and that just doesn't sound healthy. B-Res, when you look at Druids, when you look at Paladins, when you look at DKs, they all have good like physical contributors like Frost DK, Feral Druid, and Ret Paladin, and they all have tank specs as well, which all of those classes bring battle reses. It only makes sense to me that a Warrior would be able to bring a battle res. There's been a lot of joking that battle res, maybe a Warrior could just scream at somebody that's dead and they just like jolt their heart awake and they wake up scared. I think that sounds funny, and honestly doesn't really sound too far-fetched from like the thematic reality. I could see that being hilarious and would not mind it at all, but just the battle res in general would be a reason for people to invite us. There's been so many times in Mythic Plus where I just don't get an invite because they're looking for a battle res only. They added in the option of cables, which is great, but having to walk over, get on top of someone's body to res them, it can cause another death. I mean, I've done it plenty of times successfully, but it's just not ideal. having an actual dedicated battle res on a class is obviously superior to that. I would even almost go as far as to say that all tank specs, or all classes that have tank specs should have a battle res, because as a tank, you're the one who's going to be like the stone wall that isn't going to die, and so it just makes sense to me that you would have the capability as a tank to res your teammates when they die. So I'm actually an advocate for all tanks, which they almost do, all tanks to have a battle res. But giving this to Warrior would give us another reason to be added to a slot on the comp. Right now, in Season 2 of The War Within, we are just a stat stick for Battle Shout. We are just there to buff up the outlaw rogues and things like that. On the meters, we're getting absolutely like smurfed on. It's insane. When I run with like a Guardian Druid, Marksmanship Hunter, Fury Warrior, Outlaw Rogue, and Mistweaver Monk, there's only one battle res. It's the Druid. That is the perfect opportunity for Warrior to have a battle res and have two battle res in a nice, well-rounded physical comp, and feel like you are a core member of that without it just being battle shout and being a stat stick. So I really do believe the battle res is a great addition, and if not like the number one addition that could be put in for Fury or Warrior in general. Sorry, Habit. So thank you all for watching. This has been my top 5 Warrior wish list. Let me know if you agree, disagree, or have anything that you think would be even better for Warrior. I'd love to hear it all. And everyone, just remember to always keep pumping. See you next time. Peace.